Good morning, this is Jim Whitehead of All Power Group. I'm sitting in the famous building from hell. We moved from Davie, Florida about 7 months ago, and we went from a home that was 4,000 square feet down to a home that was less than 2,000 square feet. We knew if we did that type of purchase that I would need to have a pre-built building brought here, set up in our backyard. Now that sounds real easy, but the problem was we got it permitted, and if you look at my video from a couple days ago, I call it the building from hell because there were so many different things that went wrong that I admit it was very, very trying. But the good news is we're here and I'm speaking to you now. My channel is a lot to do with animals because I'm an animal lover. They're the best of the best. We're so blessed to have dogs and cats, and I could go on and on and on. Horses, I don't want to leave anybody out. But with this building, we had to do a building permit. The building had to be at the level of the home. I did not want to pull an electrical permit, so I decided from day one, besides not wanting to pull a permit, that I was going to set this building up off-grid, and as adding to my generator businesses, I'm now doing solar generators. And just a quick aside before I get into the process, if someone said to me today, because I've done home standby generators for 20 years, they'd say, should I get a generator? I'd say not a standby that needs to run on propane or natural gas. What has come forward big time in the last couple of years are the solar generators, and they are made up of an inverter that inverts power from DC to AC, and they can run, in today's world, they can run a whole home depending on how much you need to put in. So the days of the standby, needing to put expensive propane in, all the additional permitting, it just isn't going to make any sense. So my type of business is where I try things first before I get into selling them to customers. So this is going to be 3 parts that show the 3 different solar generators that I've put in here. Today we're going to talk about the very first one, and that was from Anker, A-N-K-E-R. Good company, very good with chargers and multiple connection devices. So I figured I'd give their 767 and companion battery the first attempt. So we're going to be going through, and I'll tell you what was good, what was not good. So moving on, you will see what I had to install was the infrastructure, whether I did a standby generator or a solar generator. And what you're seeing is a manual transfer switch, and in this case, because this is not a big building, only 4 circuits. Now, going down the road of these devices, I had no idea at the beginning how long or how much power I was going to need to do what I'm doing. Because right now I'm recording, cameras, monitors, and special lighting. So I just had no idea. Even though I'm a generator guy and I'm good at estimating, if I look at someone's home, how much power they're going to need with what they want to run, this was just an empty building. There was no benchmark, no point of where you'd say, well, if it's this size, you need this much power. No, there was nothing. So put in the Anker unit and hooked it up, and again, you'll see the unit, you'll see what it basically does and how it works. But what you're seeing again is the transfer switch, and it's called a manual switch because it can go between a grid connection and a solar generator connection or a standby generator. So I am only using it as a manual on and off of the 4 circuits. I do not have a grid line coming in, and the only power I have is the solar generator. So, without saying too much, let's start taking a look at this. That's a little bit closer view of the power going in. The light in itself is not necessary, but it's a good way where I can look at where I'm sitting. I can look over there and see that light, and I know I'm receiving power. That's a longer shot from the actual unit. And what you're seeing down on the floor, that is the Anchor 767 model number and a companion battery. Was this a good unit? Yes. Well built. It put out, power, but the downside and why I ended up changing from this was the largest output was, and you can see the kind of the weird color green connection. That connection typically, and they call it an RV connection because that a lot of times is the size and the right connection for an RV. Typically they're 30 amps. The Anchor, and I didn't know this when I bought it, was only 20 amps. Now, was that a real big problem? No. You have to kind of future-proof it as best you can with what you know at the time. So I did not like that I only had 20 amps available. Now, what happens? If you go beyond the amperage, the unit will shut down. So you could be very much like I am now in the middle of a presentation, and it could very well just say, whoops, too much power, I'm going to shut you down. And everything goes off, the lights go off, and we're just not having a good time. So, the part of the whole thing where, again, I didn't know the amount of power, and the mistake I made, and it was my mistake, that the Anchor only had the access or capability of 1 extra battery. So in other words, if you're not getting enough power with the main unit that you're looking at, that's the one on the bottom, and then the battery that's on top, that's all the power you're going to have. Now, as an aside, but something you shouldn't have to do, in this case, I ended up putting additional Renogy batteries and so forth that had it where when I was getting low on power, I could plug it in like as if it was a solar connection, and I would still have some battery power, but that was not what the goal was. So there you see it, and going to the next slide, that's a little closer up picture. Now what you see is that 30 amp connection, which is only a 20 amp connection in this sense. I don't know why Anchor did that. I assume because that connection typically is a 30 amp connection. On the right, you'll see when I spoke about the additional batteries, when I found that this Anchor was not giving me enough power to get through a day, I could plug in the battery and boost it up. Also, the solar generators have solar input. So you'll see at the end of this presentation, you'll see my portable panels in the back of the building that on a good sunny day, you'd get, extra power, so it would last longer. The problem here is, one, we're in winter. In winter, the sun is much lower in the sky, the days are shorter, and unfortunately I have some trees in the back, so solar is not a great point until I end up adding to the panels I have. But why I did all this and had it where I was not bringing power from the building was because I was going to be, when this building was inspected by Collier County Building Department, and they said, oh, you got this, you got that. I'd say, well, this is not permanent. The solar generator is not permanent. It's a manual transfer switch, so there's no automaticity to the whole process. And my solar panels are not permanently installed. So those are things where, you are doing it honestly, but they can't really inspect something that's not permanent because it's not installed permanently. So we're in a situation where we're not getting enough power. The sun isn't great. I had to add additional batteries. It was a 30, instead of a 30 amp connection, it's a 20 amp connection, only capable of adding one battery as part of the system. So it just it did not fit the plan. And again, this was not Anchor's fault. They were good support, and they actually even took the unit back a little bit beyond the warranty or return period. So moving on, that's just a close-up, and this tells you percent are your batteries, and that would be the 767 and the companion battery. How much power is coming in, how much power is going out. So when I put a light on, and it's kind of interesting that you have it where you're so more conscious of power than you would be in your normal home. Because every light I put on, that reduces my time for doing what I need to do. So, they also tell you technically how much time is left, which are in most cases very inaccurate. Now you're seeing there are the solar panels. They're up against the building, and again, I ended up getting my final inspection about 2 weeks ago. And luckily, again, they didn't get into anything to do with what I had done myself here with the solar generator and the non-permanent solar panels. And when you're done with permitting and you passed, you then can do some things that you may want to do, and that's, in this case, where I'd be putting permanent solar panels. What you're looking at, each of them, there's 3 sets, 2 up on the concrete and 1 on the ground, which it isn't really ideal, but I will be putting in some permanent that are on a permanent rack, so they're anchored better. And by the way, each one of those 3 sets, they're only 200 watts each. So the even on the best day, best sun, I'm only going to get about 500 to 550 watts, which is better than not getting anything. We're not there yet. Now this is where you see how the solar panels come into the building. As I said, there are 3 sets, and you can see the 3 sets there. So kind of to conclude with this whole process, the building, just with the Anchor, there was just not enough power. So I learned a lot from it, learned that it could be good for some things but not good for this situation. So we did not do that. Now, just to tell you, the next plan is to discuss number 2 attempt at adding power and adding enough power. What you're seeing, and again, I'm going to do a full presentation on this unit, the good and bad. This is the EcoFlow Delta Pro with a companion battery. Bigger than the Anchor, but also capable of having another battery, the unit in the middle, and you'd have a battery on each side. And you, with panels, would certainly be covered with more available power. But I will again get into that separately and explain again the good and bad. I want to thank you very much. I'm having so much fun. This building is somebody's dream. It's obviously my office and my YouTube creation hub, and it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much for watching this. As people say that talk about people getting better at doing this on camera, that's exactly what, the more you do, the better you get. I'm not there yet. But again, thank you very much for being here. And I'll catch you in the next one.